Thom Hartmann here with you, and in the studio with me, I'm really pleased to have Paul Levi. He is the author of, most recently, The Quantum Revelation, a radical synthesis of science and spirituality. Sting, the musician, said the quantum revelation is mind-blowing. Paul, welcome to the program.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here, Tom.
Glad to have you here with us.
Yeah, really.
So, quantum physics, you say this is the greatest, the most profound scientific discovery in the history of the human race,
Right.
and this is the thing, or a thing, that could save humanity?
Yeah, that's very true, and it's not just my opinion that it's the greatest discovery in all of history in the realm of science. I mean, that's beyond debate. What is up for debate is, what does it mean? Because it's such a radical discovery. And I'm pointing at that it's actually, when you understand what it's showing us about who we are and this, what the world, the whole nature of this reality, that it's offering us the solution, in a real way to the world crisis that we're in, and that's what my book is about.
So the key concept within quantum physics that you're hanging this on. Is, as I recall, is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, or
that's
that when you observe something,
right. That's part of it. It's really the act of observing. So quantum physics didn't come out of a void. It came out of what the pre-quantum physics, which was the Newtonian point of view, which basically was imagining that this world objectively existed, and that
it was totally mechanistic.
Yeah, totally mechanistic, deterministic, and we were just passively observing it, trying to figure it out. Well, quantum physics came in and basically proved that there's no such, that the idea of there being an objective world, that's an illusion. It doesn't even exist. And to even talk about an objective world is total nonsense. And so quantum physics actually discovered that the act of observing this world actually influenced, in the moment, the very world that we observe, that the act of observation, the observer, and the object observed were all interconnected parts of one quantum system.
Yeah. There was a debate about the spiritual nature of reality back in the 18th century, as I recall. Dr. Samuel Johnson said, they got to this debate, and the question was asked to him, how do you refute the idea of an objective physical reality? And he said, I refute it thus, and he kicked a stone and hurt his foot. I mean,
right.
How do you react to that?
Right. Well, the thing is that it's not to say that there's nothing out there. What quantum physics is pointing at is that it doesn't exist objectively separate from us in the way that we've been trained to imagine. So this phenomena of the observer effect is the doorway that really opens up what I'm pointing at, that quantum physics is actually offering humanity, because it's pointing at that the act of observation is creative, and that's always the case 24/7, but our species is enacting that unconsciously. And because it's unconscious, then it's actually the way that it'll manifest in our world will not be serving us, will actually be harming us, and that's actually playing out both individually and collectively in the body politic.
So it's like a giant feedback loop.
Yeah, it's an instantaneous feedback loop.
Yeah.
And so the point is that what quantum physics is pointing at, I mean, in a real simple way, is that this reality is it's exactly as if it's a collective shared dream that we're all dreaming up into materialization. But because it's a dream in a certain way, if we hold a particular viewpoint, then this dreamlike reality will instantaneously reflect back that seeming viewpoint as being seemingly objective. So then we have the evidence to prove to ourselves that our perspective is actually correct, that we're seeing what's objective reality. So we become more entrenched in that viewpoint, and it's a feedback loop.
This sounds very esoteric. Can we translate this into kind of a practical reality? When you're struggling with Donald Trump as president or whatever. I mean,
right. Well,
from a quantum physics point of view,
from the quantum physics point of view, is that okay? Well, if what quantum physics is saying is true, and it's never been proven the slightest bit to have any inaccuracy whatsoever, then from that point of view, what we're experiencing now is a mass shared dream, which is to say that Donald Trump, that we've dreamed him up, all of us collectively have dreamed up
himself included.
Trump, himself included, as a dream character who's embodying a particular quality. Like for me, maybe he's embodying ignorance or just madness or narcissism. But if I'm seeing him as separate, then that, you see, the whole thing about quantum physics is that it's pointing out that there's no separation in this universe, that everything is seamlessly interconnected with everything else. That includes Donald Trump. So he's a dream character. He's a reflection of that part of me. And then as soon as I see that, then all of a sudden I'm not like reacting to him as if he's separate, which then, you know, I become conditioned by my reactions. And actually by having that unconscious, you know, reaction, I'm actually feeding the negative energy in the field.
No, I got it. And this is kind of the struggle for people who understand quantum physics and try to translate that into an epistemology, essentially, you know, for lack of better description, a religious system. You know, it's sometimes referred to as a New Age system or something like that.
Right.
That, oh, it's just all a dream, or Hinduism, actually. I mean, this is 6,000 years old. This is the core of Hinduism, in fact.
Right.
But that it's all a dream, and then again we constantly come up against that Samuel Johnson problem. You know, I'm being waterboarded. How do I tell myself this is just a dream? You know, or
right. And like I was saying, it's not like that's not happening if it's waterboarding or kicking his foot on a stone and there's pain. But the whole point is that our experience is actually not objective, in the sense that, you see, what quantum physics has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, that there's nothing objective outside of us, that we're part of the universe that we're observing, and the act of observing actually influences the very universe.
Even that implies that each one of us is a separate consciousness. I mean, isn't our consciousness part of the great consciousness, and isn't the great consciousness really the only thing that exists?
Yeah. So in other words, we're actually these little, as these microcosmic fractals, we're interconnected with the macrocosm, so we're not separate from the whole field. So what that means is that when any of us has an expansion of consciousness, that immediately gets deposited in the collective unconscious of our species. And so the idea, like, you know, what quantum physics is really getting at is that we're actually interconnected with the universe and with each other, that we depend on each other, that we're interdependent. And that cuts through the whole idea of separation. Because if you see there's nothing objective out there, and that's what quantum physics is showing, what happened to the subject? If there's no object to have relationship to, what happens to us as subjects? So it puts into question, who are we? And that's where quantum physics becomes this sort of a path of having to do with, you know, spirit, with spirituality.
Yeah. My wife loves this. Back 40 years ago in San Francisco, there was this guy, Sufi Sam, who was kind of a well-known Sufi master in San Francisco. And he had this theory that when we die, we go into the great goulash pot, you know, the great soup pot. And we get all chopped up into a million little pieces and it just become part of the soup. And every time somebody is born, this is a reincarnation story, which is not what we're talking about here, but just for illustration purposes. When we're born, the great soup maker puts a ladle into the soup and pours it into the new body. And so our obligation as we go through our lives, and this is where I think it kind of meshes with what you're saying, is to brighten the soup, to lighten the soup, to heal the soup, to help the soup.
Right. Well, you know, what quantum physics is saying, because we're interconnected, any one of us having a moment of expanded awareness or owning our shadow or seeing the dreamlike nature, that expansion of consciousness gets deposited in the non-local field of the universe, and immediately there's more light in the universe when any of us begins to wake up. And not only that, we might be the actual, us doing that, us having that moment of expanding consciousness could be the very catalytic sort of moment that will precipitate a global awakening in the entire species. I mean, that's a possibility.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
And if I could say one other thing, too, the thing about quantum physics.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
we're out of time, Paul.
Oh, okay.
Paul Levi, Levy, excuse me,